Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm going to continue to spam your chat box with the link because I realized I didn't send that out to you all. We'll get started in just a minute. Feel free to start on successes and celebrations if you have done that before and you know how we usually start. Welcome everyone to Synchronous Online Teaching Strategies. This session is for math specialists, how to use high leverage coaching in your new role. My name is Teresa Wills. I'm an assistant professor at a George Mason University in the Mathematics Education Leadership Department. I was a mathematics coach for years at multiple middle schools and an elementary school. I've worked with kids K-8 and teachers in this role, and I have a lot of experience in how to leverage your position to build relationships and trust with teachers while not just doing busy work, while actually using your knowledge as a math specialist to move the mathematics forward and to move out of that comfort zone into a really hardworking zone. As we get started, I did want to let you know you'll be working between two windows through Blackboard Collaborate and through Google Slides. I'm going to go ahead and post the link to the Google Slides in the chat box. But I do need to make sure that we know that it looks like my estimates were a bit off on how many people would attend. I usually cap my sessions around 50. And so when I'm responding to a number of people that come, let's just say there's a lot higher of a percentage here today than our usual. So what does that mean? It means that once we get past about 75, Google's can sometimes get a little clunky on the Google Slides and make it so that it needs like a minute to refresh and let you see the new updates. So if yours is, taking a minute to refresh, I'm going to try and model patience and how, I'll just kind of take a moment and be patient with that as it's loading, and then we'll continue in our conversation. I never like to miss a beat. I like to continue conversation even if technology is being a little wonky. But I did want to note that we are, looks like we are getting a higher percentage today than normal. So excited to have you all here. Again, here's the link to the slides if you just came in. And I'd love to hear out from a couple of you all. I see somebody is part of the Beagle Club. I have an older Beagle right now. Who is this? And new puppy, I assume?
That's my puppy, and Lisa Buck. We got him in May. It was really hard to get him from a rescue because all the rescues were really taken. And then underneath, that's also mine. It was my 20th wedding anniversary yesterday.
Oh, wonderful. Very cool. Yeah, August is mine. Gosh, mine's tomorrow. Thanks for the reminder. Wonderful.
Congratulations to you.
And speaking of puppies, Erica, how's your puppy doing?
He is doing very well. He actually is starting to ring the bell to go to the bathroom, so that is a huge celebration.
Oh, wow, that is very cool. I wish that that ease of puppy training is there for everyone else who's adopting puppies over this pandemic time. It seems to be a popular thing to do right about now. Lindsay, how's the zoo?
It's good. It's very socially distant if anybody's looking for an activity. The prolonged outdoor mask wearing is a little challenging, but it was nice to have a different view for the morning.
And where are you coming from? Are you are you close to us in Fairfax? Are you talking about the DC National Zoo?
Yeah, so I'm in Fairfax, but we were at the DC National Zoo this morning.
Ah, I didn't realize that it was back open to the public. I've been kind of in my own little hidey hole though, so good to know. I'm gonna have to get the kids out.
Yeah, I think it's only been open a week or so, maybe a week and a half.
Ah, okay. And we are on a doggy kick, so Megan, go ahead.
So that's Penny. We just adopted her 2 weeks ago. Um, and she is squeaking a toy right next to me. She's my little office buddy.
Aw. That's so cool. You all I see a lot of familiar faces. Bear with me if I assume people have been in a session before, just because I see so many familiar faces, and I'll try to remember that that's not the case for everyone. But this is Successes and Celebrations. It's a place where every single person has a voice heard. I do it every single time. It's great to catch up on things that are happening in people's lives, and it's a way that we can include multiple modalities. So this session is all about coaching, and I want to jump right into the difference between low leverage requests of math coaches and high leverage requests of math coaches. There are several slides, slides 6, 7, and 8, and all you do on these is double click the bullet point and you can start typing. What are those low leverage requests? And I'm going to start you off with the first one, making photocopies. And what are high leverage requests? And kind of the way we're thinking about this is low leverage, there's opportunities there to make great relationships and trust. But it's the high leverage ones that are going to move the mathematics in your school forward. So let's kind of hear out a couple of those. And if someone's typing on the same bullet point as you, you're welcome to move down to slide 8. There's barely anyone down there. The neat thing about what you all are putting here gives me the idea of the prior knowledge that you all have in this position. I'm going to make an assumption here. It might not be the case for you, but that this session is designed for people who are in a math coaching role, which means that part of their job is to support teachers in growing and developing the way that they teach mathematics to their students. And we are going to frequently come back to what is high leverage and low leverage. And I encourage you, if any of these terms are new to you, that when we do breakout rooms, you feel welcome to ask, like, hey, what is a CT meeting? And anyone can respond in the chat box. I don't know what CT is. Can you be more specific there? And that we work in that kind of collegial way. And also, if you're unsure of some terms, feel free to use the Google to help you. There's terms like coaching cycle that are up here a couple of times, and I'm assuming you mean a pre-conference, the lesson, and a post-conference, but that might be different for different people. All right, so let's talk about how we can leverage these high leverage requests of math specialists in your new position. I'm going to come at it as a math coach who's working with teachers in a synchronous environment. While I realize that that might not be the case for everyone, I think the activities you're going to get today are going to be able to translate easily to however you are working with teachers right now. The first one is using a math routine. And sometimes as a math coach, I was asked to come into a classroom and do the math routine, because how do you do a routine in 5 to 7 minutes? Won't it take a whole lot longer? And so there's been times that I would go into a classroom and work on a math routine. But the difference there between that high leverage and low leverage is what I had the teacher do while I'm modeling the math routine. And I encourage you to type in the chat box here. If you type in high and then some text, or low and then some text, go ahead and tell us if you were to implement a routine, what would the teacher be doing if you were using a high leverage coaching move or a low leverage coaching move? What might the teacher be doing while you're modeling this? Katie, can you tell us a little bit more about what you're mentioning there? Nothing specified, and what you might be doing instead?
Yeah, so just, if I was modeling it and just we hadn't established a role for the classroom teacher, so we didn't have that conversation. So she could be doing something that's great, but we just didn't have that conversation. So I think something that would be high would be maybe scribing the questions that I'm asking as I'm leading the routine, so that we can analyze those questions together, and the teacher can share what they noticed about the types of questions I asked.
Absolutely. Kim, you're kind of on the same idea there of, it's pretty tough to even take notes if a teacher left the room. What might you have teachers do instead?
I think I agree with who spoke previously. Some sort of a note-taking form might be helpful, a place where they can just write down noticings, record what questions they might have, so that it can set us up for that follow-up, for that reflective conversation afterward.
Absolutely. And Kayla, tell us a little bit. You're getting more specific than just saying notes. You're actually bringing up, you said listening on student discourse. How is being that specific a high leverage coaching move in your opinion?
I think it goes back, based upon what Katie said, of if you're thinking about the questions that are being asked during this warm-up routine, might elicit what type of student responses you receive. So along with listening to and recording the type of questions that might be asked of students, but also then how the students respond to that. So what thinking is going on, what thinking is prompted, and move forward through that.
Absolutely. So what I want to model here is how I do a routine with a teacher, like if I'm the one modeling it, and what the teacher is doing. So in this case, I'm going to model what it might look like to be in a grade level meeting where, let's say, you all are second grade teachers, and I'm going to model the strategy first with you, and then you would take that back to your students, or I would model it with your students. So in this time, when I'm working on the screen, I want you to be typing in the chat box when you see evidence of student voice. And anytime you see evidence of student voice, you're going to type that example in the chat box. It's okay if we have some duplicates, but that's going to be your specific job right now during this routine. All right, let's jump in. This one is choral counting. If you haven't heard of choral counting, I highly recommend checking it out. I actually had the great pleasure of working with Elham on how to put this together. So this is going to be day 2 of choral counting. Day 1, we slowly emerged each of the numbers. Sometimes we can have them emerge simply by putting a text box over it and slowly revealing it. We would also work on repetition and maintaining a beat as we're saying the numbers out loud. Another thing we can sometimes do on day 1 is include things like shapes and try to guess what the smiley face is before we reveal it. So day 1, that had all happened, and I'm going to jump into day 2 of a 4-day week where I'm going to change the routine each day. So we're here, it's day 2, and I'm welcoming the students, and now I'm going to ask you, what patterns do you see within the grid that we did choral counting with yesterday? Go ahead and raise a hand if you see a pattern and you'd like to tell us about what you saw. Kelly, go ahead and start us off.
I'm noticing that each column, the ones place is staying the same. So in the first column, the 2 is in the ones place and that's staying the same. And then the 4, there's a 4 in the ones place and that's staying the same. And now that I'm actually talking about that, the beginning of each column is the digit in the ones place. The first row, the first number in each column is also the ones place moving down the entire column.
So, Kelly, can you stick with one column for just a minute and make sure that I understand what you mean by the ones place, because I do want to capture your words.
Sure.
Oops. Hold on, I'll get that back. And if you do make a mistake, you can just hit Control Z and that will undo the mistake. All right, go ahead.
So for example, in that first column, so I'm looking at the 2, and I'm noticing that as you move down the column, there's a 2 in the ones place every single time.
Ah, so I'm thinking that you're noticing that too. Is that right?
Yes.
And Kelly, did I type your notes? It says there is a 2 in the ones place in the whole column. Would that be what you were saying?
Yes.
Cool. Thank you for sharing, Kelly. Marianne, go ahead. And you're welcome to use the little black arrow to help you out if you want to point to something.
I can't do that because I'm sort of having trouble with Blackboard. But what I did notice is if you look at the diagonal, if you move from the upper left-hand corner downward towards the right, the numbers increase by 12. And if you go in the opposite direction, starting in the upper right-hand corner going down towards the left, they decrease by 12.
All right, Marianne, let me make sure I get your wording. So the orange arrow shows increase.
Increase by 12. I'm sorry, if you go in the upper right hand down towards the left, I'm sorry, I'm looking at, I literally am having so much trouble seeing this.
That's okay.
They change by 8. There's a difference of 8. I apologize. So they're increasing by 8.
Whoa, that's a neat pattern there. So I'm hearing this increasing by 8. And go ahead and raise your hand if you see another pattern that you would like to share. Who else sees a pattern? Sonia, go ahead.
Hi, so each row is 10 more than the row above it, so 12 is 10 more than 2, and just keeps moving that way.
Neat. So each row is a plus 10 to go down. And the way you said that, it makes me think of that's happening for each of these numbers as we go across. Am I modeling that how you're describing?
Yeah, exactly.
Neat. Who else? And now I'm going to do a slightly different modeling here. I'm going to ask my whole class to raise their hand. I'm automatically going to make the positive assumption that every child sees a pattern here. And the norm is going to change slightly to once somebody has said your pattern, that you can lower your hand and put a happy face in the chat box. That's your way of being like, I connect with you here. And so that way I see all these hands raised. There's lots of positive ready to present, but you don't feel sad that someone else said your way because you're going to put an emoji in the chat box. So Jennifer, go ahead and tell us the pattern you see.
I see that as you go across a row, you go up by 2 digits. 32 plus 2 is 34, 2 more is 36, 2 more is 38, 2 more is 40.
So you're going to add 2 as you go in each row. Is there anything you would like to change about what I wrote? I said add 2 as you go in each row.
I think it's as you go across each square in each row.
Wonderful. And we'll take one more. Go ahead, Katie.
I noticed in the far right column, everything ends in a 0.
Oh, everything ends in a 0. Lovely. All right, so that would be the end of day 1. And we're going to move into, or excuse me, that's the end of day 2. So day 1 was all about repetition and keeping the beat. Day 2 was exploring some different patterns that we saw. And day 3, I'm going to set up some mystery numbers. The way I'm going to do that is putting boxes on top of particular numbers. I'm looking for ones that could be figured out using a pattern. Whoopsies. There we go. So I purposely want the students to be able to say like the purple pattern, the yellow pattern, things like that. There we go. And then I'm going to click on all of these boxes and I'm going to send them to the back. That's a way that you can do an ordering. And it sends it behind all of these cool little patterns that we've already identified. So we're going to do a similar thing as we did earlier. This is now day 3. And I want students to see if they can figure out what the mystery box is. But not only that, I want them to use the other students' actual wording. So for example, you might say, I know this number is 21 because I used the red outline example and restate it. This is being recorded, yes. So I'll go ahead and ask again. You can raise your hand. If someone else has said your response, you're welcome to put your hand down. Christy, which blank do you want to tell us about?
I'm going to go answer the one that's under the 8.
Awesome.
And I know that it is 18 because each row is 10 more.
I love the way that you used this strategy. Each one is 10 more. Lovely, and there we go. Jennifer, go ahead. Which one are you going to talk about?
I'm going to do the box under the 2. It's 12 because of two rules. There's a 2 in the ones place in the whole column, and each row is 10 more.
Whoa, so Jennifer used the red rule and the red outline rule in order to get this. I see that there's a couple people who found that same one. Feel free to also type in the notes how you see evidence of student voice. Lynn, go ahead.
I will do the one that is next to or to the right of the number 32. And I am talking about Jennifer Rose's rule around adding 2 as you go across. So that would be 34.
Nice job using the blue rule. I think maybe we could have used some other rules there too. So at this point, I might even open it up. Did anyone use a different rule? Stephanie, go ahead.
I'm going to go with the box in the bottom right of the, and say that that is 60. And I know that because two reasons. Each row is 10 more than the one above, and also everything in this column ends in a 0.
I love the way that you use their words. I think exactly. Way to go. And Lindsay, you've got the last one. Take it away.
Okay, so I saw the number underneath 28, and I use the darker orange rule where you increase by 12 on the diagonal. And so I went from 26 and then increased by 12 to get 38 on that diagonal.
Very cool. All right, folks, I'm going to jump right in to day 4. So the students have had some time to work on these. I'm going to do a duplicate of this slide because I really don't want to lose all the amazing information. I am going to now hide the rules that were stated before, and I'm still going to put in some of these boxes on very specific areas so that they can think about the rules that they had last time, and then I might even hide them in the back. And I'll do one more. I'm just going to call on 2 people so we can see how this is used. But your goal is to try to remember somebody's rule and try to think about what that was and why it fits here. Can I get 2 volunteers to raise their hand and try to remember that other peers' rule? Sarah, go ahead.
Okay, I am going to say the one below 30, and I know that's 40 because of that purple rule that everything in that column ends in a 0.
Wonderful job remembering our rule. And we'll do one more. Cecilia, which one would you like to do?
Hi, I will do the one below 4 using that darker orange rule. So I know diagonally we add 12, so 2 plus 12 is 14.
Wonderful. All right, folks, so that's a 4-day how I would use choral counting, and specifically as a math coach, how I'm going to engage a group of teachers in this activity. I asked you all throughout when you saw evidence of student voice, and then I might go in a little bit further and talk about how student voice is important here and why we want our students to be the ones that are up front and center. Take a moment and reflect on that activity that we just did. And as a coach, what's something you want to remember about that? Feel free to put it in the chat box or raise your hand and we can hear a couple out loud. What's important to remember about this activity as a coach? Stephanie, go ahead.
Yeah, something I really like about this activity is you use the same slide 4 times in a row, showing that it can be used multiple different ways and to build student understanding and thinking, which I think would be really helpful for teachers saying, hey, I don't need to keep recreating things, but I can be using the same slide and be getting so much student interaction and thinking out of it. So I really like that about this.
Oh yeah, we got to think smarter and not harder when it comes to online learning. Absolutely. So now not only are you just saying that, but you can provide teachers with that and get them to, milk it for all it's worth. Let's see, Kelly, go ahead.
I just think this idea of honoring student voice, and you were always, did I say that right? Is that what you meant? Is this what you meant? And like really just not only honoring it what it's originally stated, but instead of asking students like, what did I say yesterday, or use what I said, it was like, no, we're going to use what each other said. And I think that sometimes there's a perception that because we're digital and we're virtual, that it's going to be a lot more teacher-led than teacher-facilitated and student-led. And I think that this is just a perfect example of how it doesn't have to look like this. In fact, maybe student voice has never been more important than it is right now.
Yeah, I think along the same lines, Kelly, that student voice right now is so important. Um, let's see. Nasheen, you mentioned multiple ways to share. How did you experience that, and why might that be important to note as a math coach?
I just think it appeals to all the different kinds of learners. So if I may be a little reluctant to share out loud, I have that opportunity of the chat. I have it through emoji, and it just is scaffolded to the kind of learner that I might be.
Absolutely. So I have a rising second grader and a rising third grader. And I can tell you that over this time, there were so many times that the chat box was turned off because the kids were just using emojis. So that made me wonder, like, how do we leverage that? They want to do it anyways. Like, how do we get student voice in that? And it's through these activities where instead of feeling like, oh man, they said my thing, all of a sudden it's, woohoo, I get to do an emoji. And not only that, but they get to do it multiple times. So what does that mean? It means they're listening in, which is what we want them to do anyway. So be sneaky with those emojis and milk them for all it's worth. Um, Awesome. All right, this template is available for you. You can structure it to include coins if you're working on that. You can structure it to include fractions. You can structure it to include growing patterns, repeating patterns. It's definitely something that can be used even up through Algebra 1 when you are looking at functions and the way that functions are changing. So I hope that that's something that you can continue to use, everyone. All right, we're going to shift gears a little bit. I know that was a lot, and I got a lot more, so bear with me here. You all will see soon I'm going to have some offerings for Math Workshop in a base 10 adding two-digit numbers, and you all are going to get to see the slides a little bit early. This next activity is what would you do as a coach if a teacher says, woohoo, I got this Math Workshop thing, there's 8 things in here, and I'm going to have every kid do all 8 of them. How do we use this high leverage coaching to get them to really think about what does this do and why would I want to do this one now as opposed to something else now? And that is what we're going to focus on in just a second. Let me get this slide back here. One thing that I usually start with is the learning progressions for adding two-digit numbers. And I'll invite you all, oh gosh, I realize we have 80 people in here. I'll make a couple more. If there's something that you know for sure a kid needs to know before they can do adding of two-digit numbers, put that in the purple section. If you know of an idea that will let you know for sure that a kid has mastered everything there is to know about two-digit numbers, that goes in the red. And everything else goes everywhere in between. As some folks are filling that in, I'll pose this question to those who like to speak. Why might a planning sheet like this be important when working with a team on this topic? Kayla, go ahead.
I think something like this definitely allows teachers to think about the process that we go through when learning something new. So breaking it apart into what are all those small little either prerequisites or steps that we go through until we master a concept.
Yes. So we can get teachers to think about all the steps in between. I'm going to ask another question. Why is that purposeful? Like, why do we want to think of all the steps in between? Jen, let's hear from you.
We might have students coming into the unit in different places, so this lets teachers think about different starting points for different students in their group.
Yes, indeed. Kristen, go ahead.
To piggyback on the last person, I'm so sorry, I forgot her name. knowing where they are and what they need in order to achieve the goal. So like how to move them forward. What do they need to accomplish next?
Indeed. So it's, this is a way of differentiating and helping teachers to identify how to differentiate. And Shala, I love the way that you wrote there, can do. It's not what the student doesn't know. It's all about what they can do. And so at this point, I'm going to hand you over to the math workshop templates. And what you're going to do in your small groups is figure out, like, what does this activity require kids to do? And how is knowing that useful in this coaching field? You're not going to get a lot of time on these to actually interact with all of them, but definitely think with your coaching hat on. And you're coming from the premise that the teacher wants to do all 8 with all 8 students. So how are you going to coach the teacher in next steps? And that's what you're going to talk about in your groups. Slide 19 has your slide deck. You're welcome to look through the main one, but when we have 80 people working on the main one, that might be a little much. So each group can have their own slide deck where they can play around with the tools. And I'm going to pop you in breakout rooms. Try to keep them small, just 4 people per group. Let me see if I can do my math here. Done. There we go. All right, our breakout rooms are starting in 3, 2, 1. Now turn on your mic and say hello.
ART at Woodley Hills.
I'm Kim. I'm the instructional coach with the math focus at Columbia. Is there anyone in the group that's not Fairfax County? Are we all FCPS?
No, but I'm Jackie Green,
Okay.
and I know some of these names and people. I was in Fairfax, though, for a long time, so familiar. I'm in Arlington now.
Oh, hi, Jackie.
Hey, I'm the resource teacher gifted and now math coach at my school, so I'm excited.
That's exciting. Well, nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you. And this is how many sessions this is probably my 9th session from Teresa Wills.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I love them a lot, so awesome.
Okay, so
let's go back and
Great.
Great, I'll be communicator. I was trying to find my slides again. I've got too many things open, so. All right.
So, take a dish of salmon and don't fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can do, so slide 3, I can do that.
Okay.
I put something in.
In slide 3?
This is addition. That's my rule. Use the base.
So sounds like each student for this would make something with the base 10 blocks, 2 numbers, and leave the boxes blank at the top, and then they do each other's.
Use the base blocks to make an addition.
Okay.
Yeah, and I was wondering, like, as we look at the different activities, which ones might give similar experiences in terms of the learning outcomes, to give some reasoning behind why students should or should not do all of the 8 different activities.
Three, guess my rule, and then the guided math group. Because then she goes into check for understanding on slide 19.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. So then I guess it's not, so I'm a little confused then.
Hi group, how's it going?
Okay, I think we're a little confused on the task at hand because we saw that on slide 16 of the original PowerPoint, it has 6 different things, and you were saying how would we coach a teacher who wants to do all 6 of these? Is that correct?
Yes. So in your slide deck, your personal team slide deck, you have all the gray ones. Those are the ones that I would do in small groups. The blue ones I would have done in whole group. I should have mentioned that earlier. So given all 6 of those, they're at different stages in that learning progression. So as you all kind of look at the resources the teacher presents, how might you coach the teacher to purposefully differentiate these different activities for different students? So what does each activity do for the students? And which ones should go with which students and why?
So kind of help the teacher think through the data of what the students know or are working on and how to put them in match them with the correct activity.
Yeah, what's important to know in terms of coaching with that? And we're just going to kind of survey the different ones and talk together about your experience with learning stations in the classroom and how it kind of transfers to this online platform.
Got it. Thank you.
Than doing all 8 of these.
Yeah, again, I think it goes back to the purpose and their thinking behind their current plan, right? Because the teacher has this plan of, I want to do all 8. And I think through our questioning, we could try to better understand their purpose in doing that.
And then get them more focused and streamlined.
Yeah, I mean, like, I could picture a teacher saying, well, they really like these 2 games, so I want to put those in there. Okay, great. How do those 2 games align with what you were saying, Kelly, to your math goal for the day or for the week? And then kind of just use questioning to be a little bit more specific in what she's trying to get at.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Group, I totally agree with you on the way you're thinking about this, that it does go back to that math goal. And so, we can dive even deeper in this conversation. Don't all of these have to deal with double-digit addition? And so when a teacher is, coming at it from these are all activities within the unit, what really makes them different? So kind of chat with each other about what makes them different and why certain ones might need to be experienced by all learners and some might only need to be experienced by some learners.
That's a good question.
The check, the 3 cards wanted just 20.
Are you on 20, Erica?
Yeah, yep.
I'm sorry if you can hear my husband talking. It's so annoying.
Oh, it's fine.
No worries.
Hi there, group.
Hi.
I can see
Hi.
you all are on slide 20. And if you're working with a teacher who does want to use every single one of these because let's just say they think they look cool or the kids like them, how might you coach them through being purposeful about slide 20? Does every student get it? When do they get it? Kind of what prerequisite knowledge would you want to make sure they had? And how do you move them through thinking purposefully about that?
Well, we were just starting the conversation around like, are all of these activities appropriate for every kid at this point of the school year or, whenever we're talking about this. And we recognize that those first 2 activities were really visual, really concrete, where we would assume most kids would be starting off. Whereas like this activity is more numerical and some students might need still those concrete materials to support them with it.
Absolutely, yeah. This one gets very abstract. There is a little extra choice in scaffoldings also to the side there. And you might also support the teacher in asking like, when do we give this scaffold? And when do we make sure that we don't give it? And why do we choose that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I like that just in time rather than just in case.
Julie Dixon, yep.
Yep, love her.
So good.
Love that. Where did you hear that from? That's going to be like my new quote. I love it.
Julie Dixon.
Okay.
You should look it up, Teresa. It's actually it's an article. It's really good.
I am. Thank you.
Yeah, I think these are definitely very good questions to have with teachers.
Force you, like there's a discrepancy, like you'd have to go back and look at the rules.
Right. I did the same thing because I noticed there were 2 12s, and I wanted, Andrea put a 12, and I wanted to do the second 12, but I realized I couldn't do that because I had to make a move. So,
right.
Yeah.
Hi, folks. I hear you talking about the game. It's one of my favorites because of the strategy involved. And it's so fun to change. I can put coins in here and have kids add the 2 coins together and other things. When should students have this experience? Do all students of all grades get it, or is there a targeted group of students that you would give this activity to?
I mean, I guess it would depend on what grade level you're working with, but if it's, maybe a grade who they're just learning to add double-digit numbers or, add into the double digits, this might be an extension activity, but this could also be kind of a review activity, like for students, like something a little easier for maybe like 3rd or even 4th graders.
Absolutely. And in those learning progressions, I think someone even said to have procedural fluency of how to add single-digit numbers and why that's so important for double digits. So wonderful. Keep on going, guys. Just checking in on you.
Thanks.
Hello, group. Just coming in. And what are you all thinking about in terms of these different activities?
We really like them. We were playing and exploring with a couple of different ones, but we actually were just talking about the guided group and the Math Learning Center. Would you mind going in detail or like elaborating a little bit about the guided group, that was just what was on our mind.
Sure. When I do math learning stations, it gives me time to work with just one group, much like I'm doing here with you all. And I might even share my screen with you all and conduct a little bit of a mini lesson here. So I might be using these pieces. And we would be doing a mini lesson about how do you see, 23. Um, and then, if we're going to be adding more, and we're adding 10 more, which piece do I add? I might ask if I add 11 more, what do I have to add? If I'm extending for a group of students who've already shown mastery of addition, I might start working on subtraction. But this is a little white space where I can do more direct teaching or direct exploration while the other groups are engaged in independent group work. I can have that time to work with the students here and just model right on the page what that small group instruction might look like. So this is just the app that I chose to use. I thought you all might like to take a look at it and how it relates to this, and talk to the teacher about, how you can still do small group instruction and more direct teaching on a specific targeted concept.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you. We love it.
Yes.
All right. Wow, our time is almost up. I'm going to bring everyone back here in just a minute.
Is there another game you guys want to try?
Welcome back, everyone. Hello, welcome.
Thank you.
And if there's one thing I know about my fellow math coaches, it's that you're thinking, gosh, I really want more time with this. And that's exactly what I love to leave teachers with also. So when I'm done working with teachers as a coach, I make sure they are still like chomping at the bit of like, oh, I want to explore this more. I want to play with these more. I want to just try them out more. And so I'm purposefully going to leave them right up to that like cliffhanging moment so that they can experience the joy of continuing their learning afterwards. Another tip that I give for teachers, I'm going to come back to the main slide deck. If you've closed that tab or window, here it is in the chat. I also like to give them an experience like on slide 47. I've made some duplicates. I'm going to remove my cover. Here's your question. I usually give this question to students, and I'll say, which is larger, 74 or 47, and how do you know? But instead, I'm going to give teachers a different question. Which is larger, and which activity helped you the most in identifying which is larger? So which activity helped you the most in seeing which of those is larger? That's what you can respond to in the boxes there. So my question for those of you who want a different modality to participate in, why might I have teachers answer this question the way I had you all answer it? How does that use high leverage coaching moves? Go ahead, Kim.
You're inviting the teachers to think about the purpose behind the activity and then what that learning outcome or learning target might be that could be attached to that activity.
Yes, it's all about finding the activity that matches it. Hope, you mentioned it's not about answer getting, it's about strategies that work best for kids. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, in the CLT setting, I mean, that's a message I would always want to give my kids, that whether the answer is right or wrong, it's really the strategy that you're using. Is it efficient? Is it working for you? Did you try somebody else's? But in a CLT setting, I found frequently, and I hope this doesn't make me look bad as a coach, but you know, a lot of times when I'm doing lower elementary problems, the teachers tell me to answer, and that's where the conversation ends, and they're really not taking on the learning of the teaching piece of it. And so by asking that question that you asked, it really makes them think about the steps to get kids to the point where, in fact, they do get correct answers, but it's how and why they get there. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense, Hope. And thank you for sharing that. You're definitely not alone in that kind of quest to focus more on strategies as opposed to answers. But for a lot of us, that's how we learned math when we were taught. And so that's kind of why maybe we are in that zone. Tacoma, can you tell us why this made you think about the activity?
Why it made me think about the activity?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so I was trying to answer your question. I guess my answer doesn't make sense. So that that question that you asked, it makes the teachers reflect on which of the activities that were in that math workshop thing, and she was trying to get all her kids to go to, which ones actually leads to which outcomes, and from there she can figure out which kids would actually need that activity. Like if you already have a kid that understands place value and how using the base 10 blocks helps them see which number is the largest, then they wouldn't necessarily need to build all those numbers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's focusing on those outcomes of the activities. And let's see, Marianne, you mentioned anticipating. That's one of my favorite things to do as a math teacher, as a math coach. Why is anticipating so important, and how did this help you with that?
So I think when we have to think about how we need to explain something, we're kind of putting ourselves in the student mode of thinking, which is kind of anticipating what are the different responses they might come up with and thinking about the misconceptions that they may also have so that we can think about how we would address it, what our move might be, or what we may need to do as a teacher coach with students.
Absolutely. So folks, I had mentioned with you all today that we're going to talk about these high leverage moves and how you can use them in your new role, if that means you're supporting teachers from a distance, or maybe you're supporting them from a physical distance, if you actually are meeting in the schools. Either way, having a collaborative shared space like this makes it so much easier. I recommend trying to find these collaborative recording spaces, whether you're using Microsoft Team and their products, or you're using Google with Google Classroom, with Collaborate with Meet, or with Zoom. Any of those have opportunities to collaborate together. And when we as coaches are collaborating with teachers, they're able to see it modeled and modeled purposely with their students. I did want to let you know that these templates are not quite available yet. I've got most of them up, but a couple little things are still in the works for these base 10 ones. But they're all available on my website or will be soon. And I hope to have this math workshop station coming out within the next week for teachers to come to. So with that, we're at the end of our hour. And that was a lot. I know it was a lot, but I hope that I've inspired you to think about ways that you can use your coaching position in this, new setting. I invite you to put any questions you have in the virtual parking lot, and I'll address all of those questions. But otherwise, good luck with your online coaching, and continue to share over social media how things are going for you. We're in this together, and the best way to show we're together is putting it all out there. Oh, somebody asked about the guided group activity. And typically, one thing that I like to show teachers is that when everybody else is able to work in groups, in other words, those groups are independent. They don't need me to be like there and the star of the show. What that allows me to do, I've given you the link to this, which I'm showing on my screen, is it allows me to have these conversations with a tiny group of students on a very targeted problem. So this is where I would do a mini lesson, a short lesson. It could be on identifying this two-digit number. It could be identifying what this two-digit number is, and then, what did I just do here? When I added the two greens, and we can have this conversation in a small group of just 4 students. If I was going to extend this, suppose students had already demonstrated mastery of addition of two-digit numbers, I might be able to get into some subtraction with those students. I could use this tool on my screen. I can also invite students to share their screen and show their thinking using this tool. I really do like the Math Learning Center. I think their tools are really accessible to a variety of students, and so that's why I put it in there. And that's what pulling small groups would look like virtually. It would just be me jumping into that breakout room, working with them, and then being able to jump around into the other rooms to see what they were doing. Someone wanted to know the question, and I'll put that down here. That's roughly what I would have asked. I really want them to focus on the activity. Somebody asked about class size. And what I have found in terms of class size is it depends on really what you're trying to do and students' prior knowledge. I can also tell you my favorite class size, and that is somewhere between 16 and 24 students. And I'll tell you the reason why is because I usually am looking for diverse answers. I'm looking for a variety of different representations. And when I have less than 16, sometimes I only get 2 or 3 groups, and the representations aren't as robust and different from one another, whereas more students will often lead to more representations. What I found is that over 24 students makes it so that I can't give kids the individual feedback and really remember the individual things that they have done. I rely more on checklists and find that I don't have the same connection with students. I've written a little bit about those groups in terms of not only just my opinion, but what happens when you go above 20, above 24, above 30. And some of the downsides to going below 9 in particular in those cases if you're looking for eliciting student responses and representations. If you're doing any kind of a direct teaching, one of the things I like to show is the small groups. I keep to 6 or less. Any more than 6 and I feel like it's just a lecture, I probably could have done with a video. I'm not really getting the student input that I was looking for. So that's kind of where I'm getting those numbers from. It's still very much in the works. Let's see. Do you have suggestions on basic Google Slides training? I'm not sure my teachers know how to do things like make the link, make users anonymous. I've been asked this by a couple folks. I have been retweeting some videos from a couple people that I follow, and I'm slowly getting permissions from them to put them up on my website. To be honest, the Twitter universe has been a lifesaver for me, and I know it's been there for other people as well. So I don't have an answer to this one yet, but let me see. There's one person that I follow, and she does amazing videos. Let me get her actual handle. So Esther Park does some really amazing videos on like the how-to stuff. So you can check hers out. Oh, thank you, Kristen. Simple K-12. And yeah, Lynn, feel free to email me if you have a quick one. I'd love to hear it now, but otherwise, definitely feel free to email me.
Thanks. Yeah, I will definitely email you. I know that the whole coaching aspect is going to be huge this year. And even though a lot of our math resource teachers might be doing some intervention and things as well, I think they really need to be a support for their teachers. So this was fabulous today. And I know that most of the people here were from Fairfax County. And so they've been taking your trainings. So I would just love to pick your brain on some different ideas around coaching that we could implement, because we'll be doing monthly meetings with them throughout the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Keep me in the loop for that. I think some of the important things that I really hope came out today is how you can be there with the teacher and supporting the teacher, but you don't need to be the tech helper. Like you can include tech, you can be there as a support for the tech, but you're still moving the mathematics along. And I think that's one of the big ones that math coaches are going to be faced with this year.
Thank you so much.
Sure thing. All right, folks, if you have any other questions, definitely let me know. Otherwise, happy online coaching.